fellow builders, and welcome back to the bench. I'm the mediocre modeler, and you're not. But you could be. I can. Do tell. Well, if you just go over to TeePublic, look for my store, Go Build Something, appropriately named, you can get yourself a hoodie or a t-shirt or something like that to help you get inspired. We have the regular mediocre modeler with the Go Build Something on the back. We have the Putty Sand Repeat, Builders Gotta Build, and my personal favorite, I'm 1-to-1 scale. It's a modeler thing. Anywho, what's the build? The build is the Warehouse 13 Tesla gun. And in doing the research, I forgot how good the show was. Just as a refresher, if you don't know, Warehouse 13 is kind of like a secret government agency is out finding artifacts in the world that, from history, that affect the world, like Pavlov's dog's bell. You know, if someone rings that bell, it calls all the dogs in like the near vicinity to that person. The downside is the person will drool for the next 24 hours. So it's kind of a lighthearted and fun X-Files. And some of the things that they grab, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the item is with the characters, Pete and Micah, on the show. So a couple of pieces that they have to protect themselves is they've got the Tesla gun, which was created by Nikola Tesla as an alternative to using bullets. And some of the components that are in this resin kit, I wanted to switch over and use metal. And here's how I was going to do it. I want to up my game. And so what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do, I went out and bought myself a chunk of aluminum, or aluminium, however you want to say it. And that's going to be my base piece. So I'm going to trace it and cut it, right? That's pretty good. And from one, we get two. I feel really good about this. I will say that I learned this little bump here. It comes down and step down. Well, I ground it off on this one, not realize I got a little overzealous with the grinder. What can I say? I don't think that's going to matter that much in the end, but we can put this piece to bed or set it aside until we're ready to come back to it. So, what's the next piece? Next piece is the body, okay? And I've heard several different stories about what this is. I heard it was an old fishing spool, which I could see that with the screws there. I mean, it looks like it could be a fishing spool. My plan was to make it in metal, and I was going to make it in brass because that's the color it is. Unfortunately, finding brass right now at a reasonable price is not, I could not justify it. So how do we make this and still get the creative bend out of it? We 3D model it, and that's what I did. Which kind of was a challenge because in my head I kind of knew what this looked like, and I went into Fusion 360, and so my first attempt was it looked more like a giant sewing thread spool. So this was my first attempt at trying to get this thing modeled, and basically it looks like a thread spool with two squares cut on the side. It wasn't right because the squares on the side needed to be flat for the charging module on the one side and the knob on the other. The gauges on one side and the knob on the other. So this got remodeled. Okay, so now this time I've got it where my sides are flat. I've got a groove in the bottom for the body to sit on the rail, and I've got some holes already in it so that I can be ahead of the game. So here was my first attempt, and it's not bad. It's not bad except for the fact that this side and this side are two different thicknesses, which isn't right. And what I was trying to do is where these are, I was going to use, and I've already purchased, actual screws, brass screws to go through there. Come here. Come on in. Okay. A brass screw. And I was going to have it come all the way through. So I had to position the holes, but there are also little pieces of brass that go around the end. Actually, it was this end. And when I set this up on the print, I didn't have a base set up, so to separate the bottom plate from the bottom of the body, so it came out as one solid piece. So I decided to go back into it again, and this is what I came up with. Oh, also, I didn't have, what didn't I have? Oh, so there are also pieces, little holes to hold the little brass pieces that stick out around the tube. I wanted to work that into the plan. So this is what I've come up with, and I think it's right. The one thing I did get wrong is this is no longer centered, so there's a bigger gap between here and here than there and there. I'm gonna leave it. I could always go back and redo it, but at this point I think I'm happy with how it came out. So Need to get this off it. Ouch! Here. Cut the supporting material off, and the next step will be to get this groove onto the body. So we're going to have to do some sanding. So that's going to be the next step, to get this sanded down to fit this onto that. My next concern is the test tube, the vacuum tube, to make sure that I've got this portion of it right to where I can put the vacuum tube on there and it's going to sit high enough to where the coils are going to rest up there. Might have to take that down a bit, but one step at a time. Well, that was simple. Alright. Huh. One of my holes didn't print. That's interesting. Huh. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with the big vacuum tube in the front. And yes, so I'm using a PL 500 for that. Go on there like that. See, I was afraid of that. Well, okay. Nope, that should work. Just have to figure out. So I may have to modify a little bit. I might have to take that little bit off of there. It's just I need to figure out how high. I may have cut this groove a little bit too deep. I might have to raise that. Okay, so I'm trying to align this with this and then the vacuum tube, so it's going to rest somewhere in that neighborhood like that, right? Something like that. And it's too low. And in looking at some photos, I got this wrong. This gap is way too low. So, because my thought was it was aligning this on the rail. And the way what I have to do is go back into Fusion 360 and put this gap back here so that it holds it in orientation there, and just put a smaller gap at the bottom, because there is a gap between the bottom of this and this rail you can see straight through. So I got to fix that and then reprint this. So well, see, now I'm thinking, is there any way I can fix this without reprinting it? I can always just lay some styrene in there and sand it. We're gonna think about this for a second, and we'll come up with a solution, and then I'll tell you what it is. Okay, while I'm over there trying to get it together, I don't know how I got this far in the video without telling you about the giveaway part, because the name of the video is Tesla Gun and Giveaway. So when I got this kit, I was building more resin kits, and so that's the model builder that I was. I'm trying to work on the model builder that I am. So we're stretching our limits, and we're trying to become better. That's why the frame is made of aluminum. That's why instead of the body being brass for whatever reasons, we're going to model it. We modeled it in Fusion 360, and we're going to go that direction. Once the model kit, once the Tesla gun, the upgraded Tesla gun is completed, I'm going to take the Warehouse 13 resin kit that I'm using as the template, and I'm going to give it away to you guys. So what we're going to do is I'll put the email address above. You need to email me your email address to Go Build Something MM, and in the title put Tesla Gun Giveaway. I'll collect those emails, and at the end of the build, one of you guys is going to have a nice Tesla Warehouse 13 resin kit to build. Alright, sounds to me like I'm getting it together in there, so let's get back to the build. The question was, could I fix it, or did I have to remodel it? I chose to remodel it. It was a lot easier to remodel it and have it printed. It was only a 57-minute print. So, and then it also gave me the opportunity to do a little bit more practice in Fusion 360 to fix it. So now we've got our gap on the side. We're shallow on our, and even at that I still had to do some sanding. So I've got it working. So this is the resin piece, and you know, it's going to fit on here just like that, right? So now I need to get, okay, the first thing I need to do is to get this guy into this guy. Well, how are you going to do that? Actually, it was pretty easy. All I did was I took my little paint tray and I filled it with black paint, and then I took the vacuum tube and dipped the pins. I'm going to give you a picture of the if you've never seen a vacuum tube, how you connect the tube to the radio or the TV is through these little pins. The pins, you know, you'd have a socket, right? Well, I didn't have that socket on the spool, so I dipped the pins into to my paint, and then I kind of eyeballed it and made the little dots to where each pin was. And now I'm going to have to glue the pins down, but now she fits. And that's where my little drill press comes into use. This is just my regular Dremel, and I've got the drill press, and that works great for more small, delicate stuff. So now we got to get this action working, right? Now, if I was using the resin one, that would be perfect. But unfortunately, we're not. So I'm going to have to modify the aluminum one. I've already got it chucked into the vise over there, and I'm going to take a little bit of material off until it fits the way I want it. Remember a couple of videos where I burned myself because aluminum gets hot? Yes, aluminum still gets hot. Yep, all right. The first grind was to make it functional. The second one was to make it pretty. So, that's... Alright. I'm so paranoid about dropping this. Okay. We have the clearance. I could actually even take that down a little bit further, because the next step in the process, there is the copper coil that is the tip. so now we're working on a coiled tip end of the Tesla gun. And this is probably where geek me and practical me get into a bit of a kerfuffle. Because geek me is like, well, you need to figure out what size that wire is. Is it a 0 gauge? Is it a 12 gauge? Is it a 14 gauge? Well, you know it's not 14 because that's too small. But practical me is like, well, dude, what we have here with us is 12 gauge and 14 gauge. Just use what you got. And that's kind of what was happening before when I was trying to figure out whether to build, because I'm always trying to figure out, do I want to build it exact or do I want to just build to the spirit? Me personally, I always kind of land somewhere in the middle. I think that's what works for me. But what we're going to do is, I have some 12 gauge copper wire, and I've stripped back the insulation on it, and that's some nice pretty wire. I won't have to polish that or anything. And I found a bolt. I took my calipers and measured the tip because I want the copper to kind of go fit over that, although I am going to glue it. And what we're going to do, just wrap our copper wire around the bolt. I'm going to clamp it with a pair of vice grips so the copper doesn't want to go anywhere, because we're going to be putting a little bit of torque on this thing. At least we're going to try. Come on. And that way, hopefully, we can get a nice, neat, tight coil. There you go. Alright. Now, actually using a bolt is a really good idea. If you lay the coil on the threads, that kind of helps keep you on track too. Yep, I like the way that's coming out. There. You should just be able to take this down. Get that. Alright, so I made it a little bit longer than I needed to for a reason. Because my coils aren't really tight at the bottom, but I think I finished well. And I might just be able to stick it in the vise and just kind of scrunch it together, but this gives me enough room to decide exactly how long that needs to be. Alright. So, forgot the test fit. Let's try and see what it looks like on here. Yep, that looks pretty good. Fits over the end of that. And even at that, what I might end up doing is sanding it down to where it's level straight across there. So on the end, we have a nice flat connection when we go to glue it. So, what's next? What's next indeed? Well, first, I want to give you a good look at our little coil. See? Look at that. That's so pretty, isn't it beautiful? So we're going to set that aside for the moment. Now that we've got the front end of our body taken care of, we have to take care of mounting the back end. While I was in Fusion 360, I went on ahead and made some little mounting surfaces. The back, whereas the front goes right into the body, the back pieces, the coil actually fits over, the little pins fit over that. And in hindsight, I could have just designed those into the body, but I didn't. So now what I have to do is draw myself a line, and I've got some small screws. I'm going to drill some holes and get those on there, and once those are on there in the orientation that I want them, this can be primed and painted. But I think we're off to a good start on this one, and that means it's time for you to go build something. You have all the tools that you need to set out on an adventure of your own. Don't forget that we do have the contest. This is a giveaway, so once we are done, or once I am done building this upgraded Tesla gun, one of you lucky subscribers is going to get this kit here. Also, don't forget to check out the store on TeePublic, where you can find your hoodies and shirts and coffee mugs. And if you do decide to get something, do me a favor and take a picture of you with your mediocre model or product in your work area and send it to me. I'd like to see what you're working on. Put it, whether you're working on some armor, you're doing some oil paints, or you're out in the garage, cutting some wood or whatever. I'd like to see it. But until we meet again, have fun, be safe, and go build something. Pew 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 pew.